A blessed Sunday to us. I chose the shorter version of the gospel reading, or the shorter form. After all, it's just a very short gospel reading today, because I would like to emphasize and to put into what we call into focus, into the limelight, what Jesus had observed according to the Gospel of Mark about that poor widow who gave everything that she had. Now, I remember as a student browsing through all the notes provided in order to understand the so-called exegetical remarks or explanation of the gospel passage. It is presented there that anybody actually can actually distinguish the amount or the sum of money that one puts into the treasury box, because according to the structure of the temple, there is like a trumpet ba, no? Diin ibutang ang mga kwarta, ang mga sinsilyo, magsugod og dako, no? It's actually a larger one, and then it goes a little bit smaller until the end. Kunya sa pagbutang ana, natural nga mutingog yun mahibalan. So kung daghan kay kag ihulog, ana jud, no? Nya og wala og gamay ra imong ihulog, madunggan gihapon nga mara. Something like that, no? So munay usa sa mga nindot kay nga akong na-appreciate, because according to this understanding, bisan pa man og kagamay sa gihatag, mutagning pa man gihapon. But then Jesus would make a difference. It is not in the amount or in the quantity, but it's in the quality. And the quality here has something to do with the only means of livelihood. Mauna lang to siguro ang iyang katapusan anang adlaw, no? Muna nga, I actually would like to connect this to the beautiful message in today's second reading, because murag wala may widow dito, no? No? Sa responsorial psalm na ay widow. First reading na ay widow. Ang gospel na ay widow. Pero wala may widow sa second reading. It was talking about Jesus offering once and for all, no? That is a very beautiful theme in the letter to the Hebrews, once and for all. Kausa lamang gayud, wa na usba, kausa lang. Now, how is this connected to the offering of the widow in the gospel reading and in the first reading today? Nga mauna lang to ilang kanunon gipangayuan pag yun ni naduga nga tigkaon, di ba? Nga lalaki pag yun. May launtag bata ang nigduga kay gamay ra, no? So unsa may connection sa once and for all? I find a very creative connection with this to the very fact that what the widow or the widow's mite into this gospel reading is once and for all. No? Mauna lang yun ito'y nahabilin. Mauna lang dito iyahatanan, once and for all. Ihapag yung gihatag ngadto sa templo, ngadto sa Ginoo. And this is where we get the essence of what the church, not only the Philippine church through the second plenary council of the Philippines, describing the church of the Philippines or characterizing the Philippine church as a church of the poor. And one of these beautiful descriptions is taken from the Acts of the Apostles. And the second half of this quotation speaks something about the poor widow's example. Unsa may giingon sa Second Plenary Council of the Philippines? We are a church, and in our communion, we do recognize that there are no rich who cannot receive, and there are no poor who cannot give. No, nga, bisan gani ang mga kabus makahatag, unya ang mga dato nga daghan na silang ilaha, makadawat paghihapon. And this is what actually describes and continues to challenge, if not to haunt us. Tungod kay, this goes down to the level of what, again, very many examples that we can actually use, no? And most of these are sayings, no? Saint Ignatius of Loyola has this very beautiful prayer attributed to him. It is called the prayer of generosity. And this is one of my favorite songs, by the way. Dili lang ko mukanta, kay dili na ako ilugan og record ng mga paring ang mukanta sa homily. No, kay daghan na unya me. No? So, but the song goes this way. No? Lord, teach me to be generous. Teach me to serve as I should. So generosity di ay, the giving, especially the giving of the self, is intended to serve. To serve as I should. And then what are the conditions? What are the elements? To give and not to count the cost. To fight and not to heed the wounds. To toil and not to seek for rest. To labor and ask not for reward. Save that of knowing that I do your most holy will. And this should become our prayer, regardless of what status in life we are in, status of life we are in. Whatever things we are doing, depending on the focus in our lives, inasmuch as whatever we do and whatever we give is always part of this intention. And when we say intention, unsa may importante nga pulong sa intention? In. Asa man ang in? Gikan sa sulod, no? Wa may intention nga gikan sa gawas kay og sa gawas na unsay tawag ana? Extension. No? So intention gikan gyud na nato dili gikan sa gawas. In other words, di pud ta mapugos. Kinahanglang gawas nun. No? Free, liberated, liberal. Muna nga, one of my famous expressions whenever this gospel comes during the liturgical year, no? Every year, katong akong giingon nga, nindot kayo pamation kay kadaghanan nato, hurt and hurt until it gives. No? But the poor widow is give and give until it hurts. Kay nga naman, what we give as part of the generosity which comes from the word gene, no? the smallest part, that particle that is about life, ang atong ihatag bahin gyud sa atong kaugalingon. That's why the surplus that the gospel reading is talking about, that's not anymore part of your whole. No? Sobra na good. But if you give your part, and that's what we do when we participate in the Mass, no? We come here with all our intentions. And hopefully our participation in the Eucharistic celebration is not our spare time. Take note of that. Naata karon sa misa tungod kay this is an essential part of our time, part of our day. We do not come here because this is my spare time. That is not desirable. Musimba lang ta kay naatay extra time. Uy, maulaw tas Ginoo. No? And that is what real generosity is. It comes from the heart. It is part of ourselves. It is our intention, not an extension. Because what we do and what we are here for is to present, according to St. Paul's letter to the Romans, a sacrifice that is whole and entire, acceptable and pleasing to the Lord, despite our weaknesses and the lack of certainties in our lives as well. Because once we offer it whole and entire, He is the one who knows and accepts it. And that's the reason why in thanking God, it's also a whole and entire thanksgiving. Dili lang ginagmay nga pasalamat, kundili dinagko gyud nga pasalamat. Amen.